Everyone envied him, his wealth, his power, his perfect family. But the day this millionaire claimed he had gone blind, everything changed. Smiles faded, voices hardened, and love slowly disappeared. No one knew his blindness was fake, and no one knew he was watching who would abandon him in the dark. The doctor's office was silent except for the slow ticking of the wall clock. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your chest, making every breath feel heavier than the last. Daniel Harrington sat on the edge of the examination bed, his posture straight, his hands folded neatly in his lap. To anyone watching, he looked calm, powerful, in control. But inside, his thoughts were racing. Across from him stood Dr. Myers, holding a file he didn't need to read again. They had already discussed everything in private. The tests were clear. Daniel Harrington was not blind. Yet in just a few minutes, the world would believe he was. "Are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" the doctor asked quietly. "Once you tell them, there's no turning back easily." Daniel let out a slow breath and nodded. "I'm sure. I need to know." "Know what?" the doctor asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Who loves me and who only loves what I can give them." For 30 years, Daniel Harrington had built an empire from nothing. He came from a poor neighborhood, worked nights, slept in his car, and turned failure into fuel. By 45, he was one of the most powerful men in the city. Newspapers called him ruthless. Business rivals feared him. Employees respected him. At home, however, Daniel believed he had something far more valuable than money. Family, a devoted wife, 2 grown children, a brother and sister who always praised his generosity. Family dinners filled with laughter, compliments, and admiration. Or so it seemed. But lately, something felt off. Conversations stopped when he entered the room. Requests for money came more often than genuine conversations. Love felt conditional, spoken loudly when checks were signed, but strangely quiet when he needed rest. And then came the idea. If he lost everything tomorrow, his power, his usefulness, who would still stay? The nurse knocked and entered. "Your family is here," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "Let them in." First came his son, Eric, confident and impatient as always. Then his daughter, Vanessa, scrolling on her phone even as she walked. His younger brother, Mark, followed, already asking questions about test results. And finally, his wife. Sophia Harrington stepped in last. She didn't rush. She didn't speak. Her eyes were fixed on Daniel's face, filled with concern so raw it made his chest ache. She crossed the room and gently took his hand, squeezing it as if to remind him she was there. "Always." The doctor cleared his throat. "Mr. Harrington has suffered sudden and irreversible loss of vision." The words dropped like a bomb. "What?" Eric said sharply. "That's impossible." Vanessa looked up from her phone. "Blind? Like, completely?" Dr. Myers nodded gravely. "I'm afraid so." Mark cursed under his breath. "So, what does this mean for the company?" Daniel felt Sophia's hand tighten around his. Her breathing became uneven. "Can he be treated?" she asked, her voice trembling. The doctor shook his head. "No. He'll need assistance. His life will change significantly." Silence filled the room again, but this time it felt different. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Daniel lowered his head slightly, pretending confusion. "Sophia," he said softly, "why is it so dark?" She immediately stood. "I'm here," she said, moving closer. "I've got you." Eric stepped back, rubbing his temples. "Dad, this is a lot. I mean, how are we supposed to handle everything now?" Vanessa sighed. "This is terrible timing. I have plans. Travel. I can't be stuck." She stopped herself when Sophia shot her a sharp look. Mark cleared his throat. Well, Daniel, we'll figure something out. But Daniel heard it. Not concern. Calculation. That night, the mansion felt colder than ever. Daniel sat in his bedroom, Kane resting beside him, pretending to feel his way around. Sophia guided him gently, helping him sit on the bed, removing his shoes, speaking softly with every movement. I'll rearrange the house, she said. So you won't trip. I'll label everything. We'll adjust, okay? We. Daniel asked quietly. She smiled through tears. Of course we. In the hallway, voices whispered. This changes everything, Eric muttered. The company stock. What if investors find out? Mark replied. Vanessa's voice was sharp. I didn't sign up to take care of a blind man. Daniel heard every word. Days turned into weeks. Eric stopped visiting as often. Vanessa moved out temporarily. Mark called only when paperwork needed signing. Slowly, painfully, the world Daniel thought he knew began to fall apart. But every morning, Sophia woke before sunrise. She cooked. She cleaned. She guided him gently through rooms he already knew by heart. She learned how to help him shave, how to tie his tie, how to pretend not to notice when he tested her kindness. At night, when she thought he was asleep, she cried silently beside him. And Daniel watched every tear. He watched as his powerful life collapsed, and as one woman chose love over comfort. And this was only the beginning. The first real test came on a rainy Monday morning. Daniel stood at the top of the staircase, his cane tapping lightly against the wooden floor as if he were unsure of the next step. He tilted his head, listening, pretending to be lost in the familiar space. The house that once echoed with movement and laughter now felt hollow. Sophia, he called softly. She appeared immediately. I'm here, she said, her voice warm despite the exhaustion he knew she carried. Hold onto my arm. The steps are slippery today. I don't want to be a burden, Daniel murmured, lowering his head. She stopped walking. Please don't say that, she said firmly. You're my husband, not a burden. He nodded, hiding the ache in his chest. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled faintly of burnt toast. Sophia had been trying to do too many things at once again. Daniel could tell by the uneven rhythm of her movements. She was rushing. I'm sorry, she said quickly. Breakfast isn't perfect. It doesn't have to be, he replied. What he didn't say was that she hadn't slept more than 4 hours in weeks. The phone rang. Sophia glanced at it, hesitating. It's Eric, she said. Daniel stiffened, but said nothing. She answered on speaker. Good morning. Mom, Eric said, his voice clipped. I need Dad to sign some documents today. Sophia looked at Daniel. He can't see. I know, Eric interrupted. That's why I need him at the office. Investors are getting nervous. We can't keep hiding this. Daniel leaned slightly toward the sound of his son's voice. Eric, he said calmly, your mother can bring the papers here. A pause. That's inconvenient, Eric replied. I have meetings. I can't waste half my day driving back and forth. Sophia's jaw tightened. Your father's condition isn't an inconvenience. Another pause, longer this time. I'll figure something out, Eric said flatly, and the line went dead. Sophia slowly set the phone down. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? Daniel asked. For how they're treating you. Daniel reached out, pretending to search for her hand. She took it immediately, kneeling beside him. They're just adjusting, he lied. But inside, something cracked. Later that afternoon, Vanessa stopped by unannounced. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, each step impatient. Dad, she said loudly, as if he were hard of hearing instead of blind. I can't hear you, Daniel replied evenly. She laughed awkwardly.
Right. Sorry.
I just came to pick up some things. Sophia followed her upstairs, helping her pack. Daniel stayed in the living room listening. This house feels depressing now, Vanessa whispered. Not quietly enough. I can't live here anymore. He can't hear you, Sophia said sharply. So? Vanessa snapped. It's not like he can see my face. The words hit Daniel harder than any business loss ever had. That evening, Mark visited. He sat across from Daniel, tapping his foot nervously. I've been thinking, Mark began. Maybe it's time we discuss the adjustments. Adjustments? Daniel repeated.
Yes.
Power of attorney. Temporary control. Just until things stabilize. Sophia stood near the doorway, her arms crossed. Daniel doesn't need to give up control. Mark forced a smile. It's for his own good. Daniel nodded slowly. Leave the papers. I'll review them. After Mark left, Sophia picked up the documents and tossed them gently onto the table. You don't have to do this, she said. They're trying to take advantage of you. Daniel reached for her face, brushing his thumb across her cheek. I need to see how far they'll go. Her breath hitched. I don't understand. You don't need to, he said softly. Weeks passed. Sophia began selling her jewelry, pieces Daniel had gifted her over decades, to cover household expenses he pretended not to notice. She stopped going to lunches with friends. She canceled her gym membership. She even picked up part-time work at a local library, guiding Daniel through the mornings and rushing to work after lunch. At night, she massaged his shoulders until her hands ached. I'm fine, she insisted whenever he asked. But one night, Daniel heard her cough softly in the bathroom, followed by the unmistakable sound of crying. He sat on the edge of the bed, fists clenched, fighting the urge to end the test right then. Meanwhile, the rest of the family faded further away. Eric sent emails instead of visiting. Vanessa stopped calling altogether. Mark only showed up when legal signatures were needed. The mansion no longer felt like a home. It felt like a waiting room where love was slowly dying. One afternoon, Daniel deliberately knocked over a glass of water. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I didn't mean to. Sophia rushed over, cleaning the mess without complaint. Are you angry? He asked suddenly. She froze. Angry? At you? Never. You've given up so much, he said. Your life, your comfort. She swallowed. I didn't marry you for comfort. For what then? He asked. She knelt in front of him again, holding his face gently in her hands. For you, she said simply. That night, Daniel made a decision. The test had shown him enough. But the truth, when it came, would change everything. And not everyone would be ready for it. The third month of Daniel's blindness was the hardest. Not because he had to pretend anymore, he had perfected that, but because pretending not to feel was becoming impossible. The house was quieter than ever. Entire wings of the mansion sat unused, lights off, doors closed, as if the home itself was mourning. Daniel noticed every detail, the echo of his own footsteps, the dust gathering on unused furniture, the sound of Sophia sighing when she thought no one was listening. One morning, she helped him into the car. I'll drive you to the garden, she said gently. You used to love sitting there. I still do, Daniel replied. The drive was silent. Not uncomfortable, just tired. When they arrived, Sophia guided him to a bench beneath the old oak tree. He remembered planting it with her decades ago, their hands dirty, their laughter loud. Now, she sat beside him, rubbing her palms together to keep warm. I'm going to the library after this, she said. I left you soup in the thermos. You don't have to work so much, Daniel said quietly. She smiled, though he could hear the strain in it. We need to. A shadow crossed her face as she stood. I'll be back before sunset. When she was gone, Daniel sat alone, staring at the path she had walked away on. This test was supposed to reveal greed. He hadn't expected it to reveal loneliness. Later that day, Eric arrived unexpectedly. "Dad," he said, standing stiffly in front of him. "We need to talk." Daniel tilted his head. "About?"
The company, Eric said.
"The board is losing confidence. They don't think a blind man can lead." Daniel felt the insult burn, but kept his voice calm. "And what do you think?" Eric hesitated. "I think it's time you step aside." Sophia had just returned and froze near the doorway. "He built that company," she said sharply. "Blind or not?" Eric sighed. "Mom, you don't understand business." Daniel raised his hand. "I'll consider it." Eric's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yes," Daniel said. "But I need time." Eric nodded quickly, relief replacing concern. "Of course. Take all the time you need." He left without another word. Sophia stared after him, disbelief in her eyes. How could he say that? Daniel reached for her hand. Because he already has what he wants. That night, Sophia collapsed into a chair, her body trembling. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "I'm so tired." Daniel sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Then stop," he said gently. She shook her head. "I won't abandon you." The next day, Mark visited again with lawyers. Daniel listened as they spoke in careful, rehearsed tones. "It's just a precaution," Mark said. "In case anything happens." Sophia stood tall beside Daniel. "Nothing is happening." One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Mrs. Harrington, if you'd like to step outside." "No," she said firmly. Daniel smiled faintly. This woman had once hated confrontation. Now, she faced it without flinching. After they left, Sophia's hands shook as she poured tea.
"They're circling you," she said.
"Like vultures." Daniel nodded. "I know." That evening, Vanessa called for the first time in weeks. "I heard about the lawyers," she said casually. "Dad, this is all very stressful." "It is," Daniel agreed. "So maybe you should move somewhere smaller," she suggested. "Sell the house." "It's too much for Mom." Sophia's breath caught. Daniel felt something inside him harden. "You're worried about your mother?" "Of course," Vanessa said quickly. "And the upkeep costs." Daniel nodded slowly. "I'll think about it." The call ended. Sophia turned away, wiping her face. "They want you gone." "They want what I leave behind," Daniel corrected. That night, Sophia slept sitting up beside him, afraid he might need her. Her head rested on his shoulder. Daniel stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, memorizing this moment. In the early hours of the morning, he heard her whisper, "I'd give up everything for you." He closed his eyes, tears slipping silently down his face. The test had gone too far. And yet it wasn't finished. Because what Daniel was about to do next would expose the truth so completely that there would be no room left for lies. And when the darkness finally lifted, only one heart would be proven pure. The storm arrived the same night everything began to fall apart. Rain hammered against the windows, thunder shaking the mansion like an accusation that could no longer be ignored. Daniel sat in the living room, his cane resting against the sofa, listening as Sophia moved quietly through the house. She was packing. He hadn't asked her to. She hadn't told him she would. But he could hear the zipper of an old suitcase.
Slow.
Careful. Final. "Sophia," he called. She appeared in the doorway, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I didn't want to wake you." "Where are you going?" he asked. She hesitated. "Too long." "I found a small apartment near the library," she said softly. "Just for a while." His chest tightened.
Why?
She sat across from him, folding her hands together as if holding herself in place. Because the bills are piling up. The house is too big. And your family, her voice cracked. They're planning to take everything. You're leaving me? He asked, barely above a whisper. Her head snapped up.
No.
Never. I'm trying to protect you. By walking away? She stood suddenly. By making sure you don't lose everything. I can't fight them here. But I can work more. Save more. I'll come every day. I promise. Daniel lowered his head, pretending despair while his heart shattered. That night, she slept on the couch, leaving before sunrise. The next morning, Eric arrived with documents already signed. The board voted, he said briskly. They want control transferred immediately. Daniel nodded slowly. Then bring them here. By evening, everyone had gathered. Eric, Vanessa,
Mark.
lawyers. The living room filled with voices that sounded more like business than family. Sophia stood near the door, soaked from the rain, holding grocery bags. She froze when she saw everyone. What's going on? She asked. Daniel stood. I have an announcement, he said. The room fell silent. For months, you've believed I was blind, he continued. You watched me struggle. You watched her suffer. Sophia stepped forward. Daniel. He lifted his head and opened his eyes.
Clear.
Focused.
Seeing.
Gasps filled the room. I can see, he said. I always could. Sophia dropped the bags. Eric's face went pale. That's not funny. It wasn't a joke, Daniel said calmly. It was a test. Vanessa stammered. You lied to us? I told the truth, he replied.
About you.
He turned to Sophia, whose knees buckled. He rushed forward, catching her before she fell. I saw every tear, he whispered. Every sacrifice. She sobbed against his chest. You broke my heart, she cried. And you saved mine, he replied. He turned back to the room. Leave, he said. They tried to speak, to explain, to justify. He raised his hand. I've seen enough. That night, the mansion felt alive again. Daniel knelt beside Sophia, holding her hands. I'm sorry, he said. I never meant to hurt you. She looked at him through tears. I would have stayed forever.
I know, he said.
And that knowledge broke him. The days after the truth came out felt strangely quiet. Not the empty kind of quiet that haunted the mansion before, but a soft, fragile silence, like the pause after a storm, when the air is still unsure whether it is safe to breathe again. Sophia stayed. She moved back into the bedroom slowly, as if afraid the moment might break if she rushed it. Daniel watched her carefully now, no longer pretending, noticing the deep lines of exhaustion on her face, the slight tremble in her hands when she poured tea, the way she startled at sudden sounds. You don't have to take care of me anymore, he said one morning. She looked at him gently. I never did it because I had to. He nodded, swallowing hard. The rest of the family did not return. Eric sent a long email filled with apologies that sounded like legal disclaimers. Vanessa texted once, short, defensive, angry. Mark never reached out at all. Daniel read none of it aloud. Instead, he spent his days beside Sophia, trying to learn how to give back what she had given without hesitation. One afternoon, he found her sitting alone in the garden, staring at the oak tree they had planted together years ago. You remember when we planted this? She asked quietly. I remember you laughing because I got dirt on your face, he said. She smiled faintly. I was young then. I thought love was about comfort. And now, he asked. She looked at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Now I know it's about choosing someone, even when it hurts. Daniel knelt in front of her, taking her worn hands into his. "I tested the world," he said. "But you passed a test you never knew existed." Tears rolled down her cheeks freely now. "I didn't need to pass anything. I just loved you." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay awake, replaying every moment. The way she sold her jewelry without telling him, the way she worked herself to exhaustion, the way she defended him when everyone else saw weakness. By morning, he had made a decision. He called a family meeting. Eric came reluctantly. Vanessa arrived late. Mark didn't come at all. They sat across from Daniel in the same living room where greed had revealed itself. "I won't punish you," Daniel said calmly. "I won't yell. I won't argue." Eric relaxed slightly. "But I won't reward betrayal either," Daniel continued. He slid envelopes across the table. "Your inheritance has been redirected," he said. "Not taken, earned." Vanessa scoffed. "Earned how?" Daniel stood and gestured towards Sophia, who stood quietly behind him. "She earns it," he said. The room froze. "All shares, assets, and control of the foundation now belong to my wife," Daniel said. "Effective immediately." Sophia gasped. "Daniel, you already ran this family when it mattered," he said softly. "Now it's official." Eric stood abruptly. "This is insane." "No," Daniel replied. "This is justice." They left without saying goodbye. Weeks later, the mansion was sold. Daniel and Sophia moved into a smaller home near the garden. No staff, no grand halls, just sunlight, quiet mornings, and laughter that didn't depend on money. Sophia returned to the library, not because she had to, but because she loved it. Daniel began speaking at small events, not about success, but about truth. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sophia leaned her head on his shoulder. "If you had really gone blind," she said softly, "I would have still stayed." Daniel closed his eyes. "I know," he whispered. "That's what destroyed me and healed me at the same time." He turned to her, his voice breaking. "You loved me when I was useless to the world." She smiled through tears. "You were never useless to me." As the sun disappeared, Daniel held her tighter, knowing something most people never learn. That true love doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand credit. It doesn't wait for reward. It shows up quietly, when no one is watching. If this story touched your heart, let it remind you of something we often forget. True love doesn't appear when life is easy. It shows up when comfort disappears, when strength fades, and when there is nothing left to gain. Money can attract people. Power can silence rooms. But only love stays when the lights go out. Daniel saw the truth when he pretended to be blind. But Sophia showed the world what real sight looks like. Loving someone not for who they are in public, but for who they become in the dark. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes love is more than words. Because stories like this aren't just meant to be heard, they're meant to be felt. And remember, the people who stand by you when you have nothing are the ones worth everything.